Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdix Dave, and today I'm joined by Cameron Rout. How are you doing today, sir?
So far, so good. It's bright and early, but I've had one monster so far, so I've got a good start.
Just ripcording monsters over there in the AM.
Yeah, that's what I do. I'm burning through about three a day now, so I got to slow down, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So you run D&D in a castle with your
See?
sister Tara, which we had on, and we had some great Jane Austen discussions.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
she's good for
Absolutely.
that.
Yes. Well, I find it fascinating because there's like a whole there's a whole Jane Austen RPG, and I grew up D&D and
Good
played D.
company, is that what it's called? Something like that. Good
It's
society.
good society. Yeah, yeah.
Good society.
And I'm like, what do you even do with that? Like, do you show up to the dinner parties and start stabbing people? How does this even work?
Well, if you played my games of D&D, sometimes it devolves into a little bit of that. Playing dinner parties and I don't know the social experience. But yeah, eventually you got to pull out an axe and kill something, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a lot of our games. I mean, not all of them. We're good for like one combat a session anymore. If we really want to throw my players through a loop, there'll be, two or three combats, and they don't have to do it themselves. I feel like because the game's gone, a lot heavier in the narrative side. So there's a little bit. But that being said, as long as you can create tension and conflict, you don't actually have to have violence.
Yeah,
I,
no, definitely. Keep them scared, right?
yeah.
Like my go-to, and this I have yet to find a problem in D&D or role-playing games in general. I have yet to find a problem as a DM that cannot be solved by chasing them with zombies. Where it's like, my players are taking too many short rests. Chase them
Yeah.
with zombies.
Yeah, there you go. Zombies never
Can't
interesting.
rest.
Do you like fast zombies or slow zombies?
I prefer fast zombies myself.
Okay.
Um, I'll take slow, but you gotta ramp up the numbers, and that slows down combat. So fast zombies, fewer zombies. It's also scarier.
Yeah. They
But it
call
doesn't
them
have to be zombies. I mean, that's just this is the principle of time pressure, right? Like
yeah.
if they're resting too much, then you're not attacking them enough.
So
You gotta keep them
you
scared.
you got a new endeavor underway, Sword and Scroll.
Yeah, Sword and Scroll. We're D&D in a castle. Obviously, this year had challenges. We had to cancel this year's D&D in a castle, to my great dismay. And so we left a lot of broken hearts with the castle on pause this year, and realized that there was still a huge um, desire there for people to connect with these great game masters that we have for the castle. And so we set up Sword and Scroll, where we basically took that community and are expanding it to connect people with professional game masters, and it's going well. I mean, it's new, it's growing. We got some of the GMs you might recognize, like Mark Meir and Rachel Seeley and others running games, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So Ash was telling me a little bit about it, and you guys have a little bit of a different setup for it.
Different than what?
Or maybe that's the festival that's coming in afterwards. Uh,
Ah,
the
okay.
rooms, like a virtual. It's almost like a virtual convention type space.
Yeah, we're gonna use this. Oh gosh, you're gonna find out how woefully Ash knows everything. Ash is our producer who
Yeah,
actually knows things. Um, and but I wish I could
like
remember
don't
the name
bother
of
me. I
it.
just write the checks.
Yeah. Most of the checks are going out, but eventually some will come in.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's basically an 8-bit world where you can interact with each other in like imagine Final Fantasy one type environment, and then connect with people, and you have Zoom chats and stuff in this space. It's pretty cool. You can have different rooms where people are doing different things, and we're going to have a lot of uh, uh, yeah, fun and exciting activities happening. Um,
Yeah, I imagine we're going to start seeing a lot of that because before Ash had, mentioned it to me, someone else brought up another company that does something very similar, and but they do it for like conferences and virtual universities and stuff. So I imagine we're going to see more and more of it. And previously, like we had another guest on who likes to play around with VR, and we had been joking about the virtual convention because like he was telling me that like there's movie theaters, like viewing rooms that people go in and hang out and they watch movies together in VR. And I was like, oh, well, I guess you could
Oh
do
yeah, yeah,
a whole
big
convention
screen.
that way.
They do. There's a few softwares, and between you and me, no one else is listening.
Oh yeah,
Top secret. I'm thinking a lot about how VR fits into the gaming landscape. Now, I know there's several efforts, but I haven't seen anything yet take off. And when you think about the fact that like VR, the promise of VR and AR has been for so long to connect people remotely, and yet for a game that relies on connection so much, there hasn't been anything that's really taken off. And I think that there's some big challenges. One is just the face-to-face interaction that's missing. Like no matter, I've tried these. I tried spatial, tried big screen, tried. There's a alt space VR. There's a few of these that are trying to solve this problem, and there's a really human aspect missing. So I'm trying to figure that out. If I can figure that out for Sword and Scroll, I think that
yeah.
would be a really amazing experience to be able to run these games where you come and participate in experience TBD, but I think there's something there. We'll keep watching that space for new technologies and things coming up.
Now I've seen where AR is coming to the table, where like you either view through your phone or a special pair of glasses, and you're able to put out these like ads or targets, right? And like, oh, a dragon appears, and everyone will see the dragon
Right.
appear, if they look through the thing.
Right.
Uh,
But I think that's super cool. However, I'm always surprised by how rich these games can be without the accoutrements, right?
yeah,
Without anything else, right? It's really a storytelling game, and you get, some people really like minis because it gives you something to focus on, and they're cool, and they like to paint them and stuff like that. But I wonder, so many times you try this new thing, like I've been, whether it's video maps or something that you want to really enhance the experience. And often I find that it ends up taking away because of the sort of overhead and investment in these other technologies. So I really love it when DMs, have really spent the time to get it right and get all of their, whether it's organizing their minis so that they don't have to look for them on the fly, or they have like their digital tabletop set up and tested 15 times before, they run it, because it really makes a difference if you can do these things seamlessly. I think that's going to be a big challenge. As soon as I saw, it's like, oh, you put on these AR glasses and see the dragon. I'm like, yeah, you probably like, you only have one pair for the whole table. And so they
yeah,
take
yeah.
turns trying it on, and then you can't find the thing and you put the wrong chip on and you can't get it in the right, like, I don't know. Well, the jury's out for me on whether or not these will actually add to the game or take away.
Well, I mean, I'm fascinated by that stuff, but at the same time, I still most of our games are like theater of the mind, right?
Yeah.
So I guess academically, I'm intrigued to see what people do and what they come up with. But we've been kind of running the game, theater of the mind for so long.
Yeah.
It's kind of what's natural for us and comfortable for us.
Well, there's things that make, we're talking about keeping things remotely on topic for Sword and Scroll is a big question that I've had, and especially since D&D and the Castle started, was what makes a professional dungeon master? And it's been, I think, a question for a long time, because there's been people, like you and me that have been playing D&D since the Red Box or so, and and so it's like, oh, I've been playing for X decades. Shouldn't I be a professional GM? And the truth is, like, yeah, maybe. I mean,
Yeah,
it used to be that you couldn't swing a cat without finding a dungeon master, because the DM was just the unlucky sod that had to DM, right? It was like, shotgun not DMing, I want to play. And so you had the one person who was like, okay, fine, I'll GM. And it's a game made for children. That's what I sometimes say. It's because like the barrier to it's easy to start, hard to master, I think. And so when it used to be that there was easy access for those of us who played. You could find a GM. It wasn't hard, because all of us, I don't think we realized, had years of experience with the game. Even by the age of like 15, we had years of experience practicing and playing this game. And so, and we're talking like, 400 hours a week type thing. Um, and so now I don't think that that availability is still there. So a lot of people who've been playing since, you know, the dawn of time are thinking like, oh, how can there be professional GMs?
Mhm.
You know, why don't I just play with my friends? It's like, well, your friends have jobs now. And there's, you know, they don't have the time, and it's hard to coordinate, and the access to people with decades of experience is a lot lower. And even then, you know, like, just because you've been playing for a long time doesn't mean that that's been your craft. It doesn't mean like, you know, you're an actor or a writer and like that's what you do. So if you combine those things, people who have the experience, they also have experience with like streaming, etc., or they've got experience in the creative world, or they're actors, or etc. You combine those talents, you end up with, you know, people who are really capable of creating a game that you know, with great certainty are going to really enjoy and take away a solid experience because it's their craft. And so I think when people are saying, well, I could be a professional GM, it's like, yeah, you probably could, but you'd have to dedicate your, you know, that has to be your career, or at least a significant side hustle, in order to really put in the effort. And as I mentioned, I love it, you know, when GMs are able to put their effort into the preparation of their game to the degree that it, you know, warrants a professional experience. And now I've seen it, you know, you see it at the castle, you see, you know, masters like yourself, you know, running games, or, you know, I got a chance to sit in on Mark Mear's game, and he was the voice for Commander Shepard in Mass Effect. And he's an improv actor.
Yeah.
And oh man, it was just like, it was, you know, a show. It was like, it was so funny. It was, you know, an amazing experience. Everyone was having such a great time. And it was just like, as you know, all day for like day after day of this, you know, really cool experience. And it gave me a sense of like, oh yeah, that's what a professional GM is. That's why, you know, you spend money to go to shows, you know, and it's kind of like going to a 4 hour quote unquote show, you know, in
Uh,
different ways, whether or not it's because of the acting or the game itself or the writing or whatever.
Did you get to sit in Mark's game as a player or just an observer?
Yeah, like a NPC. So
Okay.
as you know, I was pretty busy during the castle, but I had a chance to just drop in, for a session, one of the 4 hour sessions.
Yeah. So just, and the other thing to, you know, kind of to your point is like, just because someone's done something for a long time, it doesn't necessarily mean you're good at it, right? Like it doesn't, like you know, you could be terrible for 30 years, and there's definitely some GMing styles
Well,
that you would not want to bring into an event. Very
yeah,
adversarial, a lot of conflict.
right.
Um, and
You're
and
talking from experience here. Yeah, I can see in your eyes the
yeah, well, it
memory.
used to be a style of GMing, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if
DM versus player.
yeah, and if you never grew out of that, like that's not going to fly in a more modern
Right.
table at all.
Yes,
And
and
there's reasons why
especially
it
of
doesn't fly.
strangers. I think another aspect of professional GMing is, can you play with strangers and create cohesion like that? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like if you're playing with your friends, it's one thing, right? You all know each other. You spend half the time yelling at each other and it's fine, right? You can't do that if you're creating a, you know, a commercial slash professional table. You want people to jump in, they're prepared, they hit the ground running, there's great cohesion, everyone is like working towards the story goals, they're engaged, you have your plot points planned out. Like there's a lot of effort and craft that goes into it. And I wouldn't say that, you know, people aren't terrible for 30 years, but it's because like I mentioned, it's an accessible game. So
Yeah.
you can be a good GM for 30 years, but and your friends might really like you, but it doesn't mean that you can necessarily take a bunch of strangers and throw. And if you can, you know, and maybe that, I think there's value in it to the degree that people will pay to have that accessibility, especially, you know, now that a lot of people who are playing are working professionals. You know, we're used to spending money on pastimes and going out on Friday nights, or getting babysitters for the kids on weekends, etc. Like the concept of spending money on 4 hours of quality, you know you're going to enjoy this, it's, etc., is a lot more feasible than I think it used to be. And so I'm trying to use, like, I think Sword and Scroll is an opportunity to try and turn GMing into a profession and create this world of professional gaming. And people seem to be really responding to it. Like, we just had a 9 session campaign end, and it was demanding a 10th. So we, added on a 10th. That was for Eric Campbell and Sam Delev's game, which apparently was uh, a rocking good time. But I didn't get to be a part of, as we mentioned, getting the
Yeah,
chance to
you
play
just get to
lately.
be outside, with your face pressed
Yeah.
against the window,
Yeah.
sadly looking on.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think people are playing some games. I wish I could be part of them.
Yeah,
But
so we get that question a lot about, what does it take to be a paid GM? The topic has come up often. And really to me, like what makes you a paid GM is if you're GMing and people are paying you, right? That's like the barrier to entry.
yeah,
And then the market kind of decides, right?
yeah,
If for what you're delivering for what they're paying, they keep coming back, then yeah, you're a paid GM.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the other
Go
thing
ahead.
about terrible people. They wouldn't last, right?
Terrible people. I love it. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on professional GMing, and I'm quickly filtering through my mind about like how much to share because as I mentioned, I did 2 degrees for the price of 3 when I went to business school,
Yeah.
and learned a lot about how to get something out of create a business around stuff. That's why one of the reasons I started D&D and account. Actually, one of the reasons I should put it the other way around. One of the reasons I went to business school was to do things like D&D and a castle. Because I was always really surprised at how great ideas and people with a lot of passion, etc., really had a hard time getting things off the ground. Why was it so hard when you had talent and skill and passion and all these things to create a working business around? And so I went to B school because I was so interested in that. And I was like, oh, it's because business is really hard.
Yeah, it turns out.
Like, it turns out it's really hard, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone is trying to get everyone's money. So, but I took what I learned, put it together. And when me and Tara started D&D in a Castle, I put a lot of that to use. And part of that was really focusing on strategy. And I had to figure out what is the model that professional game mastering works off of. And I'll spill the beans for anyone out there who wants to get into professional gaming in general, is that many people are modeling the professional gaming on a market basis and some of the things that you just said. But the real analogy is the music industry. It's actually paying for access to people, which is how the music industry works. Not the recordings, but I mean, that exists, right? Kind of like with the streams and stuff like that. But really, it's the in-person experience that when we talk about professional GMing, we're not talking about streaming. That's professional acting, or that's streaming. When we're talking about actually playing the game, you're paying for access to people. And you can imagine when you go to a concert, how much you pay to be standing in a giant crowd, 800 feet away from your band, where you can see them, just to be in the presence, just to be
Yeah.
around the people and in the presence. And then if you think of that and say, what would you pay to play with your favorite GM for 4 hours, right? And there's probably a couple of names you can pick in your mind that you would pay an astronomical amount of money to play that game, right? And so the question is, if you move from that peak, oh, I think my computer just went to sleep. Can you see me?
I can see you and hear you.
Okay. I've got this nice secure password.
To your point too, like, I've seen this argument always like pops up often, right, from time to time, and it'll be around for a while, then go away. But even the naysayers, even the people that are like, I would never pay for a game, they're not Chris Perkins, right? So you would pay for a game with Chris Perkins.
Exactly.
You just like, what's
right.
your level? What is?
Yeah. And so that's what we did with the castle. It's like, who are the rock stars? Who are the people, the names that are like, oh, why do people pay to play D&D? It's like, well, it's because it's the Team Phoenix. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'd pay for that game. I would go and do that. Or people are really excited about playing with Nerdarchy. A lot of people are really into the show and excited to come play with y'all. And so, yeah, I mean, you put the right people there, and then it starts to become the other way around. One of the things we want to also find really good talent, and that people know are good because they're at the castle, not necessarily the other way around, right? So you've got people who draw and who put on an incredible game, but people know them, and that's part of the draw. I would love it to be, someone is a castle GM, and that's how they're known to be good as well. So that's kind of a long-term strategy. But yeah, we're the Live Nation of D&D. We put on the show and give people the access. And when you think of it as a 4-day concert, suddenly it's yeah, like that's an experience worth paying for, right? And
So
you've got the equivalent of like basement concerts going on as well, where people are paying like $15, $25 for per game, and I think it's awesome. I think it's the equivalent of like, what happens in music, only with, if you look at how many musicians out there are playing without getting paid, yeah, you can see it's very similar. It's a tough gig because there's a lot of competition. But yeah, similar model. Anyways, that's my secret, is figure out how relate what you're doing to the music industry, and find a parallel and do that. That's probably the way to make money.
so we have to back up a little bit.
Mm,
I'm surprised Rivers RPG. You don't know what D&D in the Castle is, only because we had our own castle where we headlined. We were, I was there the year before, and we've talked about it a bunch on the channel over the last couple of years. So let's back up a little bit and break down what D&D in the Castle is. And yes, it sounds kind of exactly what the name implies.
yeah.
And how we get from D&D in the Castle to Sword and Scroll.
Swordandscroll.com. Yes. So you want me to tell the whole story? Because I know we've told this story on Nerdic. I don't want to. I'm assuming that everyone listening has listened religiously to every single one of your streams. So that may not.
Apparently not. There's some stragglers that miss stuff. Maybe the abridged version of how what D&D in a Castle is and how it came about.
I'd love to. I mean, like you said, it's very self-explanatory. When we sold the first year, we literally ran an ad that just said D&D in a castle, and it was a picture of a castle, and it sold out.
Yeah,
that was it.
I like D&D. I like castles. What is this? I don't even know what I just bought.
Yeah, exactly. It was actually, that's not true. It was actually when Jeremy Crawford and Satine Phoenix, especially Satine has been so wonderful and supportive of everything we do. Big thank you to her. When she joined, it was like, hey, this is an amazing thing for the industry. I think this is really cool. I want to be part of it. That really helped, things take off. So credit due where credit's due. But so what it is a 4-day. So it started when the origin story is that me and my friends were all having a rough time. We're all working and not working, and there was divorces and all kinds of challenges that we were facing. And I said, this is dumb, because this is my friends that we used to play D&D in high school. I said, let's get together and play some D&D. We talk about it all the time, but we never really do. It's been like a billion years. So we rented a house in Seattle, which none of us lived in Seattle. So it was like a destination, so we could get the hell away from everything, all the distractions. And we went for a long weekend, and we rented an Airbnb and ordered food by Uber Eats, and we thought that we would go and see the city and catch up and play some D&D. But no, we got there, first day till 5 a.m, and then back at the table at 9. They dragged me back out and, played around the clock for 3 days. It smelled very bad in that room, because it was, me and my old friends, and we could tolerate each other that way. But anyways, after 3 days of this, really intense, I realized we needed this. We needed the time to spend a full, when was the last time, I don't know about you, but the last time I got to play a whole campaign, it's really difficult to do and really play like we used to in high school, which was for a whole weekend nonstop. It was really therapeutic and so wonderful. And on the plane back, I was thinking, how do I bottle this? This feeling, this experience, this is so valuable. And I know that I just really wanted to share it. And I thought, people would come if it's in a castle. And so I called my sister and I said, Tara, I'm sorry, because she did anachronistic events like we were talking at the beginning with Jane Austen. She does the Pride and Prejudice ball in Canada. And I said, I have to apologize in advance, because I'm going to tell you this idea and you're going to have to do it, and then you're going to hate me. And she said, well, what is it? I said, it's D&D in a castle. And she said, crap. So it was born. We booted up. The castle in France, which you were at, was 36 people or something, and then the next year we went to 128, and then this year we were going to do around 650 or so. It was going to grow a lot. So we're now focusing on next year as a big year, because we've proven that it works. Everyone has so much fun. They wait all year for the next one. We have huge loyalty. I think 80% of all of our guests are returning guests, or 80% of our guests who came return. Um, so huge. It's become a bit of a
It was going to be
cult.
that big.
Well, we don't know. We'll never know.
Yeah, yeah,
Because the COVID hit early enough in the year that we didn't really get that
yeah.
far
I
along.
thought
So
you guys were doing like 13 tables 3 times.
3 times, 13 tables for 3 days.
No,
Over
13
three
tables
events.
for 3 rounds of castles is what I thought you guys were
Uh,
doing. Then again, like
well,
you would know better than I. So
yeah, but then we can take that and do more of them.
yeah,
Next year we're doing March, November, March, October, November, and each one of those will be 13 tables. Anyways, yeah, take over the whole guy. We're going to take over Lumley, which you
yeah.
got to see. Lumley Castle. We're going to take it over. It's just going to be crawling with games and
It was a great castle.
good time. It was a good one.
I
Yeah.
really liked Lumley inside and Langley outside.
Outside, absolutely.
Like
Langley was.
So Langley was like more castle-y on the outside,
Yeah.
but Lumley felt more castle-y on the inside.
Right. Yeah. Lumley has a really deep sort of history, and also in more recent times, a very well loved. Like you get the feeling from the library, like the leather is worn and the books are musty, and like you get a lot of that feel. Whereas Langley felt like you were about to be attacked by Anglo-Saxons at any minute, which is also fun. But yeah, D&D Castle is the TLDR. It's a luxury gaming retreat for geeks where you get to actually spend a solid 3 days of gaming, all inclusive, with professional GMs, and have a great time in a real castle a real European castle.
Yeah. P. Ribbon wants to know, can we request an area? I think Detroit has some cool places. And that's like part of the thing about, D&D in a castle. It's like authentic European castles that have been there, for hundreds of years.
It's really about, it's about taking vacation.
Yeah.
Right? And I think you can play a lot of D&D. You can go to cons, right? You do get to play some at the cons, but it's also about other things. D&D in a castle is about one thing. It's about playing that game. And everything about it is geared around making sure you can play that game, right? Like the food, the timing, like the activities, the necessary potty breaks. Like it's really about being able to focus on the game of your life. And I think it's really successful because a lot of people, they get mad at me afterwards because they say I've ruined D&D. Because all year they're like, nothing can top that game, right? Like when else are you going to have that experience where you just sit there and like everything comes to you and it's, that kind of energy and such.
They were a great experience. Everyone would ask me like, how is England? How is France? I'm like, I don't know. I got lost in France for a little while. That's all I can tell you.
That's my bad. I'm sorry about that.
Oh no, I don't think you can blame me for getting on like the wrong like train and stuff. Right? I don't think you blame yourself for me getting on the wrong train. The PA systems on those trains are horrible. And then when you're listening to a language you also don't understand very well or at all, it does not help. Right. And then when you realize the whole country hates you.
Just you though.
Yeah. Just you, I did almost get arrested in France. So close.
You did?
Yeah, because I hopped the trains, like not intentionally. It just happened. Like I got off at the wrong stop, and I was like at the end, and then they're like, "How do you get to this place?" And they gave me directions. And I was like, "Oh, good!" And I got there just as the train was pulling in, and was about to, like the doors were. I think I had to hit the button to get the doors to open again, and just barely got on the train, and then the ticket taker came around like towards the end and they're like, I'm like, I don't know, I'm American, I'm lost, just lock me up.
That's always a good excuse.
They're just like, don't do it again. I'm like, oh, okay. Probably not gonna be. When's the next one? Be back in France?
I would love to go back to France though. I mean, the castles there are just incredible, and the food, oh my god,
the food was much better in France than England.
It's true. I mean, the food. I mean, the food was all right in England, but
the cuisine is better. The French cuisine is better than English.
I think that was that first night we got there and it was raining and everyone wanted to stay outside in the rain and eat. It was nice and magical. So translating that to Sword and Scroll, you can, painting a bit of a picture here of what that's like. And so a big part of that became the community around D&D in a Castle. A lot of people stay in touch over the year. We had, last year we had a table write a novel. They novelized their campaign.
Oh wow.
Of course, for copyright reasons, they can't sell it, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a legit novel and it's good. I haven't finished the whole thing, but it's really well written. It was from Amy Vorpal's game. And it just constantly blows me away with the type of connection that players make in this community. And we have a very active Discord, and I know people meet up for games throughout the year, and it created these like real connections, like real human connections. And we talk about, I don't get to play much, but that's what I enjoy doing them because I know what magic is happening in those games,
Yeah.
and what I really enjoy is making it happen and providing the space for these great games to occur. And that sort of brings me joy because it's almost like taking my joy and scaling it, which is really fun for me.
I've actually hung out with Scott a
Oh yeah,
few
Scott Conant.
times. Yeah, I don't know his last name.
What's up, Scott?
Brooklyn Scott, right? Brooklyn Scott that's not from Brooklyn.
He's not?
No, he's like from the Bronx or somewhere. He's from New York City, but for whatever reason, like when he talks, you think Brooklyn. And
you have to have him on the show just so everyone knows what you're talking about.
He went to
Scotty he'd make good company on your show, I think.
Oh yeah, he went to a bunch of the castles, and then and then like I hung out with him at Gamehole Con, at PAX Unplugged, and then even some like online games.
Right. Yeah, I've noticed the term castler coming up. So we call ourselves castlers, which is kind of like, I realize it's kind of like Burner. And I've never been to Burning Man. I know I'm not saying D&D in a Castle is like Burning Man, but that sort of sense of community on a much smaller scale, I think is a similar idea. And we're trying to create that with Sword and Scroll. It's a community based, it's it's a gold based system. So so a game might cost, a 4-hour game might cost 4 gold. And depending on one GM, another GM might cost 9 gold or something, depending on the GM. But then how you get the gold is either a la carte. You can just go and buy it and join the game, but that's like the most expensive way to get the gold. We're really encouraging people to join the community, and so we have a Patreon set up where you can subscribe to discounted gold. So the Patreon is at patreon.com/sword and scroll, and there's different tiers give you increasing discounts with gold on subscription. And so with that, like we're hoping that people they join, they see it as like they join on, oh, I wonder what games are coming up, oh, I want to join this on, I want to try that GM, or oh, I heard this one shot by so and so is really good, I want to try that, and create, get some of these connections happening online. And because when people play this game together, there's a connection. It's not just D&D. We actually have a lot of Call of Cthulhu because we're not tied to just D&D with Sword and Scroll.
Yeah.
A lot of Call of Cthulhu and a couple other ones. I'm not as well versed in the non-D&D RPGs, but that space is growing and people are excited about playing new things. So we have that's what we're trying to achieve. I don't know if we can do the same thing without a castle and all-inclusive food, but the price point's also a little different. So kind of.
Yeah. I mean, you just assume going to the castle starts at $1,000 for just getting there, right?
Right. And the top tier actually includes registration at the castle.
Oh, cool.
So the top tier of Sword and Scroll includes includes tickets to D&D in a Castle. Doesn't include accommodations, but includes the registration, which is a significant chunk of the overall cost.
Nice. So is this live now? Have you guys already started, or is it starting with the Turkey Week?
Oh, we are. No, it is up and running. We've done a soft launch because what we did is we took all the castlers and gave them early access and started building it around that. So we had some people to play test the system and as an apology for not having D&D in a Castle this year, for everyone who moved their registration onto next year was given some free gold to come, a bunch of free gold to come and play at Sword and Scroll. So that helped kickstart things. And then we've just started, it's open up we haven't been pushing it heavy on the marketing yet. So this event coming up, I want to give you accurate dates. Do you have the dates?
It is the week of Thanksgiving, I believe.
Yeah.
Whatever those dates are. I'm terrible with
the guy that knows things. Anyways, in Thanksgiving week, I'll get you the exact dates here, but
it starts the 23rd. I want to say
23rd
because we have that because we have Ash coming on the 23rd, the kind of the day of, and they've been working like crazy, and it was the first time they could come back, when things are kind of kicking.
Yeah. So that's kind of a kickoff where we're going to bring in all our GMs and players can come and mingle and etc. And so, but yeah, we're already up and running. You can go to swordandscroll.com, click the register button right there.
How deep is the GM bench?
Right now, here, let me pull things up. We have a lot of GMs. We're prepared as things scale up. Right now, we're running a handful of games a week. But as that ramps up, we've got more people coming on standby, ready to go. Some of the games that are currently been running are B-Dave. B-Dave Walters runs a game. Rachel Seeley, as I mentioned, Mark Muir, Eric Campbell, and Sam Delev. Just off the top of my head. A couple others. My apologies out to anyone that I'm not remembering.
Also,
right
people can go over the website. You can see.
Alquin Gersh. Alquin Gersh had some games. Lauren Nemeth. Who else? Sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
That's okay. I was just gonna say, as always, there's links in the description, so you can go over the website and see who's over there and check out the GMs.
Yeah,
I know at the castle, you guys, like you said, you've had some really great GMs: Jeremy Crawford and Chris Lindsay, James Introcaso. Satine.
Satine. Yeah, and I don't want to mention names that aren't fully committed yet, but we have a good network of GMs from the castle, and people have been really awesome. Because I think, like I said, we're trying to building a profession here, and a lot of people have been talking about, D&D has become so big, and there's these professional GMs and stuff, and it's like, yeah, but has anyone really created the lightning rod to actually, turn this into an industry, right?
Yeah, there's some corporate events popping up for it. They're not really done well. Like I will say, I participated as a GM, and like the organization wasn't so great, and and they want to just like cram a bunch of people at a table. They paid us really well, to be honest with you, but
that's good.
But they wanted to cram a bunch of people at the table, and I'm like, I don't know, like, if you're charging these people or what you're charging them, but like for this amount of time, after this number of players, I got to cut you off because it's not enough time, right? If we're talking about a 2-hour game, and even with 4 players, that's like 15 minutes a piece, right? So
you got to run a very different game.
So
I did a game with we did a work offsite up in Seattle, and for our team building exercise, I asked Chris to come and run some games, but we divided it up into 3 games. It was at Mox Boarding House, which is a really cool location. There's a few of them up in Seattle. Really, is it Mox? MOX, I think. Mox's Boarding House. Anyways, you'll find it. There's a little company called Google. I'll help you find it. But it was split up into 3 teams so that there was only 6-7 people at each table, and I did the pre-work to do like the character gen and everything with everyone first, and then they ran them through the starter campaign, and it was fun. People could stay on. It was in the evening, so people could stay and play longer if they wanted to, and it was a great team building exercise. But yeah, you gotta run it differently than I think most corporate team building exercises are done, right?
It was a weird experience for me because it was the first one I did. It was online, and like they didn't get the turnout they were hoping for. And like one guy's like, I am working right now and I may have to go during this. I'm like, okay.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, that's interesting. But yeah, I've heard that that's a growing sector.
And then like 2 of the players had never played. They had no idea what was going on.
Right.
And one of the other players was like, who had more experience, was actually a GM that was supposed to be running another game, but they didn't have enough people to show up. So he had just jumped into a table to play,
Yeah,
and
I'm not fast to jump into that. I mean, we definitely should, interesting area of the market to look at for running games for companies, but it's a very different beast. It's a
yeah,
very different beast. And I think there's probably a skill set in running games in a corporate environment that would have to be, developed. We're talking about professional GMing. This is the type of stuff we're talking about, right? Like musicians have been making money for years off corporate events, right? Playing company dinners and I don't know. I'm thinking of the bigger ones. Like I used to work in oil and gas in Canada, and we'd have these big companies would throw these huge parties every year, and there'd be musicians and stuff. And so it's like, yeah, wherever you can think of musicians making money, figure it out.
there's definitely room for it. And also kind of like speaks to what you're talking about, the difference between, someone who's been GMing a long time and someone that can be a professional GM is like, I was thrown into that game with a certain expectations, and they were completely different when I got there, and I just had to figure it out on the fly and make it work, which was fine. But someone else with maybe not as much experience would be like, they might be completely lost and be like, I don't know what to do,
Yeah, exactly. And you got to go through the experience of getting your butt kicked a few times before you really figure it out,
Yeah.
Like same thing with the castle. It's like, hey, come run a campaign. It's like, well, how long is it? Well, it's 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
Two
Right?
2 sessions a day.
2 4-hour sessions a day for 3
Yeah.
days. Keep up, man, keep up. I mean, no one had done it, right? Like it was
Yeah.
a new format, so people had to adapt and did an amazing job.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of interesting for us because our games over the years have shortened, right? So
Oh yeah.
like a 4-hour game is actually kind of long for us.
Oh yeah.
Um,
So we got to put that to the test.
yeah, yeah. So just getting older. I guess our attention span isn't what it used to be, or we have to get back to like busy lives. But at the castle, you don't have to worry about that because the world doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, let me pitch a little bit or plug how to join Sword and Scroll. I mean, I say come to the
Tells
website. That's so that's, I mean, you can just go to swordandscroll.com. It's probably the easiest way to figure it out. But the way it works is you join a tavern, which is at tavern.swordandscroll.com. And then in the tavern, it's an internal community site. And then within there, apologies. Within there, you can meet other players. You can discuss with GMs and figure out, what you want to join. And then when there's a games calendar you go to, and you can find a game that works for you, and you can ask questions, etc. And so we want to make it a little more than just, you just selling an individual event where you just go, you sign up, and then show up on the date. Like you join the tavern first, and that's the community. And then from there, you pick your game from the games calendar, and then make sure you have enough gold. So whether you have a Patreon or head over to the exchange and buy some gold for your game, and then when you register, it's automatically taken out of your balance. Yeah, and that's sort of how it works. So I'm not sure what else it takes for all of your wonderful viewers to head on over to Sword and Scroll. I would love to see you all there. And you can see right now we've got a promotion. So if you head over, you can get 5 free gold just by clicking a button on the homepage, which should get you in for a 4-hour session. So you want to come play some free RPGs with professional GMs, head on over.
Yeah, I'm seeing 5e D&D over there, Cypher System, Call of Cthulhu. As the categories. Super cool.
Yeah, I got Vampire obviously running. B-Day's running Vampire.
Nice.
Yeah, a lot of options. And hey, free is good. So
you guys have a couple events coming up. I know there's 2 of them. I don't know if you can talk, if you're ready to talk about the second one yet.
I am woefully so this is really funny. You've got me. I'm founder of Sword and Scroll.
Don't worry, we'll have Ash on here.
Okay, good. She's running the event, putting it together now. So I don't know what names are confirmed, and so I don't want to necessarily speak out about a lot of the details. So I would definitely recommend having Ash. We've got a big event coming again, Thanksgiving. Keep an eye out for it. We're going to be advertising on our channels. We'll let you know. Maybe you can plug for us on your show so listeners can find out more. If you've got Ash coming on, you find out a lot more about it. But again, it's going to have a really low barrier to entry. the cost to get in is going to be pretty. It's not necessarily a profit maker. It's really just about sharing the community and showing people what we're all about. And then, there's an incentive to sign up for a membership. We have our base tier on Patreon is $10. It's called the mercenary tier. And that does things like gets you into events like this, and we're going to have bits of swag and stuff coming out. I also have a company called Archvillain Games, which makes 3D printed. We make STLs for 3D printers. So also check out Archvillain Games, which has a Patreon, patreon.com/archvillaingames. And so we have access to some stuff like from there, like mods and swag from there. And then we've also got industry partners who are going to donate. It's like we're some kind of charity. we're not a registered charity. We're going to cross promote by providing swag, and then we'll probably buy some cool stuff and share it with our members. So there'll be something at each tier. Obviously the $10 tier is to join the community and just be part of the fun. And then the expectation that the point of that is you then buy a la carte gold to go to the games that you want. And then what we're finding is people do that for a bit and they're like, oh, this is really fun, why am I paying full price for gold? And then they join the rogue level or the adventurer level on the Patreon and commit longer term, which is cool. That's exactly what we're hoping happens. People
as of right now, according to your website, if you sign up, you get a free 4-hour session. So
right. So you get five gold, which is good for a session. Yeah. Sessions start at 4 gold. So you can find a session.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where this goes just in general. Cause we've been running this channel for like 6 years now. And the number of times that we've seen people reach out to us and comments and messaging and be like, I just can't find a group. My group moved away. My group broke up, whatever. You hear all these things. And yeah, there's some people that are never going to, want to pay to play in a game of D, but there's plenty of other people who do, right? And they just want to play and they want it to be consistent.
So exactly. Let's turn this into market dynamics here. What you're talking about is a surplus of supply. Right. So we're talking about people like, well, how do I become a professional GM? It's like figure out how to serve the supply, because if you've got a surplus, demand. God, I got my supply and demand backwards. Back to business school, buy another MBA. You've got the surplus of demand. And how do you match the supply with the demand? Like these are the opportunities. And so if people are saying, I don't want to, I'll never pay for D&D, they're just called spoiled, because you have access to both the time and the people to play for free, right? You're like, the musician that has lots of musicians friends. It's like, why would I go pay to play at a concert? We can play in my living room. It's like, no, you're just spoiled because you have access to those people in that environment, right? Most of us don't. Even if we used to, even if we know those people, having the opportunity and the time and the space, like for people who don't have their lives as revolved around the game, like I know people that have their life is dedicated to this game. Not dedicated, but it's at the center of their world, right? They have their table is probably a gaming table. They have things on the walls that are game related, etc. But that's not all of us, right? And the rest of us need help finding a place to do that. And I think there's a huge demand for people who can serve that. I hope there's a huge demand. I mean, go to swordandscroll.com and show me whether there's this demand would be great. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to hear that people are really looking for a good game and to be part of something. That's exactly what we're trying to serve. When you compare it to a night out, you compare it to heading out to a comedy club or going to any social activity and the types of things that we spend our money on, like even going out for dinner at a movie, you're dropping over $100 easily.
For a family of 4, because I have one of those, going to dinner and the movies is like almost $200.
Yeah, easily. And that's not a fancy meal you're talking about either.
No. Not even. That's like the Outback and.
Yeah, no, I want Sword and Scroll to be the date night. Obviously it's not family night. I think we have a minimum age level, but you get a sitter, or you have you have an evening with the significant other. You play some, or got some time on your own, and instead of going to a movie, you catch a game. That's exactly the kind of thing that we're trying to create, and create an experience that's as good as going to a movie, or as good as or better more enjoyable than these other experiences that you would pay out of pocket.
So do you feel like now is kind of a good time? I mean, yes and no, but because, for one of the reasons why you want to do this, you feel like the pandemic has expanded the market for you as well in order to.
Yeah, the pandemic has created the opportunity to translate just in people's mind that this is an online experience.
Yeah.
Right? Before this, that was sort of okay, I guess we'll play online, right? Like it wasn't that compelling because people really wanted to be in person. But a lot of this is like, oh, I can't find a game to play is caused by that because we think of it as an in-person game because it really is enjoyable in person. Like there's a human experience that is awesome about playing in person. And so, but we don't make the connection like, oh, I could just play online. It makes it easier to get access to great GMs. And so that has really facilitated this whole business model. And I think as far as, time to be a professional GM, like it's now. Like this is the time because not only is everyone more aware of D&D and RPGs, they know it as a thing thanks to Stranger Things and so on and so forth. They're aware of it, and a lot of people want to try it, but also they can access it. You can just click a link and boom, you're there, right? Like that's pretty powerful.
Have you guys put any thought into the process as far as making it easier for people that never gamed online to get into a game and kind of not be lost by the tech?
Right. So our goal is to make our games really well. There's a few things like really pack some production value into it so that, when you come to the game, again, the same strategy as D&D in a Castle, give the game that can't be beat, right? So this will be the online game that you can't get anywhere else, right? Like you have to come to Sword and Scroll to get it because like, yeah, sure, you can play for free, but it's not the same. And so continually trying to improve that experience. And part of that is helping people hit the ground running. And so that's the purpose of the tavern, right? If people are connected in a community, they can ask questions, they can get ramped up. You can connect with your GM beforehand in the tavern, ask questions, right? Like you've got that lead up so that when you come into the game, you're not starting at like, okay, so what does everyone want to play, right? It's like, no, you've got your characters, you're dialed in, you're ready to go. And obviously from the castle, we found that's a critical part. You have to have your characters made in advance. You have to have had some time to gel. It really helps with getting new players, especially off the ground. And also then they see how easy it is. It's really just about bringing down their worries and helping them feel more comfortable. Because, you'll find that when you're playing with good players, you can just jump right in and people tell you what to roll and, suggest what spell you should cast or whatever. That part's,
yeah, I actually feel like that's less of a barrier than like someone coming in and not used to the technology. Because I mean, we seen it at our castle when we did D&D in a castle. There was a mother-son duo, and the mother had never played, and we kind of did some rapid leveling to where they ended up at a really high level, and. On top of it, we added another layer of complexity when we did like the mega battle with 3 DMs and 17 players.
And you made it really easy on yourself.
Yeah. And then when it was her turn, she's like, "I'm doing this, blah blah blah. It works this way," and
just dive right in.
Yeah, and like had never played the game before. Before coming to D&D in the Castle, they were at Doug's table, I believe, and I haven't spoken to them since, but I would love to know if she still plays, since D&D in the Castle.
Yeah, that's I hope she can make it back. It's really cool to see people again who've met the game and gotten right into it.
That's and that experience just helps so much with that. With being the ambience of being in a castle and being for being a new player, like. You don't have to worry about being weird or feeling weird because you're in such a weird place compared to your normal life. I feel like it breaks everything down for you. So it's that's an amazing
It's an
intro.
Alternate reality.
Yeah.
It's an alternate reality. Yeah. As far as an intro. Yeah. That's actually true. Can you imagine like your first time playing D&D is at D&D in a Castle? Like,
yeah. Doug is an amazing GM and, you've got the castle around you and also honestly,
I was just saying the most painful thing is not being able to play with all these amazing people that, like work hard. Oh, this would be a great deal. Let's get these people in. Let's play. And then I'm like, I just have to watch them all play, again, crying through the window. But
Well, also the players too, right? Like you get, for the most part, you're getting a higher caliber player because just to go there, right? You have to be really committed to the game.
yeah, I think higher caliber isn't the right word. The most committed. You have
Yeah.
committed players, people who are there. They're either really excited about the new experience if they've never done it, or you have people coming back that are just lit up about being able to re-engage, or you have, just people have really put their and when you get that commitment, like you can feel it. The first thing we do is you meet at a tavern. That's how we start. So
Yeah.
everyone meets at a tavern, and that's sort of how we kind of like bottle some of the energy and stuff. And you just feel it when you hit there that it's like, oh, this is a thing. I don't know, that's a overused word, but it's a thing.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
like,
thing.
you get a sense of that energy.
And at my table, like most of the players, if not all of them, were GMs. So
Oh,
that
really?
just really wanted to play.
You know what? That's true. The different castles had very different cultures because of the GMs that were there. So you
Yeah.
had a lot of GMs, people who were really experienced playing. We had another one, which was the Bard Castle,
Yeah.
with Bonnie and Xander Generate. Bonnie's last name isn't Generate. Bonnie, her last name slipped my mind. The Library Bards
Yes.
uh, ran one,
They don't
and
have
with
last
Amy
names. They're just the
Dorval.
library boards.
Yeah,
Bonnie and
exactly. Bonnie
Xander.
Gordon. Bonnie Gordon. Sorry, Bonnie. Um, and they had a very musical troupe, so to speak. They had their party was Daft Monk, and they had T-shirts made, and they made up songs for like every day. Every day they had like a new song, and it was like the Bard table, and it was incredible, very musically filled. And then we had other tables that were, a lot of new players. We had players that were really interested in streams because the GMs were streamers, and yeah, they each kind of formed their own little culture. It was cool.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think your listeners would love to hear from me from my experience with the Indiana Castle, Sword and Scroll, etc.? What do you think they'd be would be really helpful or fun to share?
Huh. That is a that is a good question, and also a very encompassing one. Oh, I mean, you kind of talked about the genesis and the experience, and the different GMs, and I mean that's definitely one of the cool things is the range of GMs that you've been able to get to the
Hmm.
table. Like meeting Mark Muir was super cool, and and getting to see him in games, like even afterwards, like Ted played in a game with him and at JegCon, which that Satine had run, and like you know he was just sitting there painting minis like a regular gamer.
Yeah,
So I mean he is, but
yeah,
it's still like weird, right?
yeah.
And then when you start talking to these people and you realize like they're just like everybody else. And
Yeah.
I bring up Mark Muir because he's like a different level celebrity than even some of the other
Right.
GMs that were there. You know,
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because he's from Edmonton and he's from Canada, and I just see him as Mark. It's like, oh, he was in that video game. That's cool. It's
yeah.
like very the accessibility and stuff uh, is great. And you know what I think
So as to
I
your
think one
question though,
yeah.
what is the approach to finding GMs? What was it for you guys that you were like,
Right.
this is what we think makes a good GM, and this is what we're looking to bring to our tables.
Right. Well, we know, and I was so woefully underinformed about the industry and who the GMs were, etc., that we had to rely on guidance from Satine and others in the industry that could actually say, oh, this is a good GM and this person. But what we found was that there's a combination of things. Is one is like people have to be pretty chill. All right, you've got to be able to roll with it. You got to be a DM that is just really, really prepared. And that's why we're finding, celebrities are great, but Mark Mears, I mean, we keep talking about Mark, we love you. One of the reasons we talk about Mark is because of the balance of skills that he has, an extremely well-prepared game, extremely excellent acting skills. Like he's got these levels and experience with lore and like, so a lot of it was trial and error. We brought in less error, more trial. I'll put it that way.
Mm.
Just learning what was important, not just to the game, but also to the atmosphere, to running. And it really helped me understand, like, there's a lot of people talk about, like, the celebrities and actors that make it in movies are the ones that are easiest to work with, not necessarily the most talented. And I think that's really important. Be easy to work with. And if we're, one of the things that I have experience with in D&D, probably the most valuable experience that I have is in entrepreneurship in D&D. Or in this space. Entrepreneurship is tough. It is really hard. And I think people have to understand that if you're trying to get something off the ground, and I know everyone is, whether it's a Kickstarter, a Patreon, your game, whatever it is you're trying to get off the ground, treat it as an entrepreneurial endeavor. It's not a hobby if you're trying to actually make money at it. It's an entrepreneurial endeavor. It might be very small. Maybe it's big, I don't know, but it is entrepreneurship. Read up on entrepreneurship. There's some great books like The Lean Startup, Startup Owner's Handbook. Just Google like good starter books for entrepreneurs, and you'll be really inspired by what you read. and I think it'll have a transformative effect on this industry if all of this passion and these people with ideas and these really cool creative ideas are able to put a little juice behind what they're doing. I think we'll see a really cool transformation. And the other thing that I would say is it costs money to make money, and don't be afraid to put some of your money behind it, whether it's a small amount or a big amount. If you've got a craft or something, ramp up what you're actually investing in it, because your time is worth a lot. And if you're spending a huge amount of time on something but not spending any money, there's a misbalance. So whatever is a lot of money to you, like enough to make you scared, spend that on what you're doing. Like when we started D&D in a castle, like I crapped my pants. I was like, we rented a castle in France and like started this ad campaign, and we're buying tickets for GMs to fly around the world. I'm like, this is expensive, right? Like this is the kind of thing. If this doesn't work, I am scared, right? Like, but it happened, and it worked, and it was worth it. And the worst case scenario was like, we'd have to readjust or something. Like, just don't be afraid. Jump in and put your money where your mouth is. And I think that people will get a lot of confidence that their little idea or their little project or their hustle, even if it's just your creative endeavor, like your campaign, throw some money into it, have some artifacts made, stuff like that. Invest in your game. And people want to know how to become a professional GM. That's how you do it. Invest in your game. Give it production value.
That's a huge problem in this industry, is people don't want to commit to making it a business or entrepreneur pursuit. There's kind of it's going away and getting better, but there's a stigma. Like when we first started, there was this whole RPG YouTube community that we immediately looked at and went the other way because they were very anti-business, right? And we started this knowing it would be a business, and we've been very open about that from the beginning.
Businessman.
Business, yeah.
Serious businessman.
But so many people that are doing a thing, but they don't want to say it out loud for whatever reason.
Right.
I think there's a little bit of a stigma with this niche in this industry.
Yeah, we're done with that. Like, come on, this is an industry with millions of people in it that love what they do. Like, don't be afraid of making some money or trying to, or have a project that's more than just your basement hobby. Like, come on, we wouldn't be having these conversations in other industries, even in the art industry. Everyone's trying to figure out how to be an illustrator, or commission rates and blah blah blah. Like, why is it any different as a GM? I mean,
it also kills the industry, like whatever industry you're in, because you lose the talent, right? Like, we got Matt Colville back because he was really passionate about doing this, and he could do a $2 million Kickstarter.
Right.
But, you know what I mean? Like,
that helps, right?
Right. But without that second thing, it would just be a hobby for him, and he would do it when it's fun, and he wasn't going to do it, and we wouldn't get that, right? So it's like,
and why wouldn't it be? Like, you think how much people love these games. Like, why would this not be an industry instead of? I mean, we call it the industry, but like right now, the only people who are really making money are the people who are really facilitating the whole thing, like some of the conventions. And I know the conventions struggle too. It's not like they're making money hand over fist. Then you've got the D&D Beyond. They're doing all right, I hear. Some of the, but most of the an industry is made of a lot of parts. So I'd love to see this turn more into an industry. And I guess, it is happening. The Kickstarter industry is alive and well. And, I'm probably talking from a dated point of view. Everyone's like, yeah, we're already doing that, Cam.
Yeah, well, it is getting better, but it's like the last 5 years, right? It's not, it's not the immediate, and you still have people that cling to old ideas. Like, it is like the worst thing is the whole pay what you want concept. I hate it so much because it's like, what store do you go into and be like, I think $3. No, I'm just going to take it. I'm just not going to buy it. If I like it, I'll come back. Maybe I'll buy it again.
Yeah. This isn't a market in Marrakesh, right?
So it's, that's really bizarre. And like I said, it drives the bottom down, and then you start losing talent because it's like, oh, I can work in this industry, or I can go to video games and support my family.
Yeah.
And have a life.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. And maybe not everyone can support their family, but like a musician, you can make some money. Might not be able to support your family, but
I almost feed my kids, so that's good.
Almost. Well done. I feed my kids sometimes.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Dave. It's been an absolute slice.
It has been. So final words, thoughts before we head on out, and then
jump over to swordandscroll.com, get your free gold, come join a game, and give us feedback. Tell us what you liked and what we should do, and GMs you think we should bring in, and let's make it a thing. Just come join the community and hang out on the tavern and share stories, and let's just come together and make this an industry.
Nice. Thanks for stopping by, Cameron. It's good to catch up. Right. Until next time, stay nerdy.